Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order and recognize that tonight's meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Sinnamit people. Are there any additions or deletions or changes in the order to the agenda?
I guess we're going to delete 11.1. Trustee Brennan would like to discuss that at the next business committee meeting.
All right. Any objections to moving that to next month's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll delete item 11.1 from this evening's discussion. Any objection to the approval of the agenda? And so we're looking for the minutes for October 11th, 2017. Are there any changes or corrections or comments regarding those minutes? Any objection to approving those minutes? Seeing none, minutes are approved unanimously. There are no presentations for tonight's meeting. We will move on to 8.1, and Superintendent Designate Tim Davey will give us an update on the Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you, and through the chair. Just a quick report here on where we're at with the Supreme Court work, and this is really about implementation of the collective agreement language. So what we're looking at here is there have been portables added to the system, and so our take on it is that we had 9 schools that we were working with. We have 4 portables that were approved through phase 2 allocation, and just to let the business committee know, the portables that we're talking about here, we have a washroom portable that was added to a pod at North Oyster Elementary, and then there are 4 classroom portables that have arrived or are in process of arriving into the district here. So we have Ladysmith Primary has received a portable. It's in place at present. Pleasant Valley Elementary has received a portable, and I understand that work is being done so that that can be up and running within the school. Mountain View Elementary is awaiting a portable that should be arriving at the end of November, and Park Avenue Elementary portable has not arrived. And again, we're looking somewhere in the last week of November for the arrival of that portable. Within that then, as I said, there were 9 schools that we were looking at. Some of the schools have adjusted within their school in terms of space usage. And so we have conversion work that's taking place at Bayview Elementary, Pollinghair, Rock City, and Frank J. Ney. So there's work that's happening through facilities to get these schools into a state of readiness. They have had adapted plans that have been in place, and those adjustments will be made. In addition to that, again, through the facilities department, portables that have been added into our system through the implementation monies here. We're looking at wet conversions for adding water services to the portables so that they have the same functions as other classrooms. The other piece at a high level here is work that's happening with our within our schools, and it has to do with remedy. As the committee is aware, there are 4 options that were presented to teachers. So this is recent work that's taking place for remedy discussions for the month of October, and the options included additional prep time for teachers, the addition of non-enrolling staff to support classroom teachers. Option 3 then looking at enrolling staff or co-teaching options, and option 4 is options that are to be determined, and that's a discussion between the committee for the district and the NDTA representatives to discuss option 4. So that is a meeting that's yet to take place. All of our principals reviewed areas where they felt remedy was to be applied, and within that then those discussions took place. Teachers filled out their forms in terms of the option of their choice, and in looking at that, that was has taken place. Teachers also have been sent a message that if they feel that a remedy is to be applied to the classroom and hasn't yet been done, so that they have the opportunity to approach their principal and have that discussion. So that's where we're at in terms of the implementation phase for the SEC work. So.
Okay, great. Thanks. Trustee Ring?
Thank you, Mr. Davey. On the portable side, you know, we're installing 4 new portables right now. Where are the students right now as we await these portables to be installed?
So in some of these cases, what we're looking at again is just adjustments that the school has made. They may have gone into a student support room, for example. So they may be using a classroom that has an intended purpose other than a general instruction classroom. And we'd like to get those services back in terms of facility. So they've made adjustments within the school, having the portable added as a general instruction classroom just gives us the space back that it's intended for.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Robinson?
Through the chair, to Mr. Davey, is there any chance we could get that report in writing? I'd like to be able to, a lot of it went by this spring.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
just,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you will.
Any other questions or comments? With respect to the portable that's at Frank J. May, is that temporary until the construction's complete there, or is that a portable that will remain after? Or?
So what we're looking at right now is conversion work. There are 2 portables that have been added. Frank J. May had a portable already existing on the site there. The construction work is going to take place, and again, a review will be conducted later in the year here to see what the actual needs are. So with the 10 additional classrooms that are going on to the site there, we anticipate we'll be accommodating and servicing the needs that are required for students through transition from Rutherford, as well as we'll be looking at any potential growth in the Frank J. May area proper itself. So.
Yeah, Trustee Dickinson?
And forgive me if it actually literally means to be determined, what are some of the options under to be determined? What does that mean? They're on the list of 4 options for remedies. And
it could be a number of different things. One of the options I know that's been put on the table is a payment to teachers in terms of either overages in class size or overages in terms of designations. But there are other options, and it could be, you know, again, anything that's presented to the administrator on site for discussion. So.
And is that, okay, I'll just wait till you guys determine them, probably best.
Yeah, and really what it's coming down to, again, is a conversation between the district representatives and the representatives from the NDTA.
Okay.
Trustee Berzovich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair. Just broadly speaking, so as not to get into too many HR-related issues, how are we doing in terms of the size of our sub-list and in terms of, I know that in doing some school visits, I've heard of days where we've been short and principals have had to sub.
Yeah, there have been a few days like that, largely on the impact days where we know that we have a lot of events happening, so special planning around that. We are continuing to actively
recruit
and reaching out. What we're looking at here is, so we're going through a phase right now, and we know that, for example, in December here, there are recruitment fairs. We actually have 2 staff members from our HR department in Toronto presently, just left today, and so there's a big recruitment fair there. We had a lot of success through Toronto last year, so we're hoping to see the same coming this way. Just as a side on that, what we find is that the curriculum in Ontario is very similar to that in BC, and it was good transference for teachers in terms of their understanding of our new curriculum and the implementation of that here. As well as we have fairs connected with VIU coming up here in December and other universities on the mainland, so we're hoping to increase our TTOC roster, probably again, I hear in the number of maybe 30 to 40 more teachers, so,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
I wanted to give Denise the opportunity to speak to the remedies. What are you hearing from teachers?
What I'm hearing is that no remedies have been provided as yet, because I think the district's still working on how that's going to look. We are interested in how that will play out too, given that we do have TTOC shortages. In terms of option 4, we are not encouraging and would not be approving payment for teachers in terms of remedy.
And is remedy something that's fully covered by the province? Have they indicated?
It's supposed to be answered.
Sure.
They're saying that Remedy is going to be fully funded, but we're just starting to submit reports, and obviously they're not accurate yet because we don't know what the full remedy is going to look like. So we haven't got any confirmation of that funding from the ministry, other than their commitment that it's fully funded.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Davey, for the update. Moving on to 8.2, Secretary Treasurer McVeigh and Director of Planning and Operations, Mr. Pete Sabo, will present on the asset management plan and an update on some of our facilities.
So we have our Director of Planning and Operations, Pete Sabo, and Mike Ross, our Manager of Planning, with us tonight to give an update in respect of our major capital projects, our capital plan, and I'm not too sure if you were going to discuss a little bit on portables as well, but.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So we do have a little bit on SCC implementation as well, and it does cover some of the items that Mr. Davies covered. First part, Mike and I will do a bit of a. This is the capital. Yeah, this is capital. Mike and I will trade off a little bit. He's been working on some of the details of these. So the first part is just a general capital planning update for the business committee. A little bit of recap. So we submitted the 18-19 5-year capital plan in June of last year. And we expect the ministry response to the plan in March of 2018. So it's still down to the ministry working its way through the process. And I can go through the process again, as I had that in the slideshow earlier. Subsequent to the announcement letter, we expect the ministry to announce the capital plan instructions, and those are the instructions for intake guidelines for the 19-20 year, and that's when we start to understand what the ministry is looking for and what funding they have, what programs they're wanting information on. Typically, they're telegraphing that as we get move closer to the dates. So this is the letter we received last March, so March of 2017, and on it had 2 school enhancement projects, NDSS dust extractor in Hammond Bay, heat exchange project. In Hammond Bay, heat exchange was 2 different categories of funding, one carbon neutral and one of the SEP. There was also 3 building envelope projects announced at that time. Now the projects in NDSS and Hammond Bay, the SEP projects are nearing completion. Mike will talk about those in a little more detail. And the BEP projects, we've been working with the ministry, and they're indicating that they're working with BC Housing, but we haven't seen anything since March in any announcement. And we keep touching base with the ministry. They keep saying, well, we'll be in touch and we'll get going on those, but we haven't seen anything recently. So we'll update the committee at a later date on that. So capital plan activities for preparation for this year's, for the 1920, include revisiting NDSS, the site planning. So we started that process, and of course you have a number of changes with a turf field, relocating portables, moving VAS CTC off the site, etc. So we're going to re-look at the site plan with respect to the replacement of NDSS. We're looking in detail right now. We're in the middle of the Ladysmith Intermediate replacement business case. And so we're holding meetings and have consultants on staff, and we're working through that process. and getting prepared for either submission with the capital plan or representation from the ministry prior to the capital plan. We're also working through and have worked through the information with respect to options around an addition to Hammond Bay and how to work the gym replacement into that. And so we're preparing that documentation as well for either submission to the ministry through the capital plan process or separately. We continue to work on the extension and Selby demolition projects, and we're hoping that this year the ministry has a more formalized process for demolition projects. Right now, we're working with them to try and identify funding opportunities, but there's nothing formal. We're also working on some SEP projects, lead and water, as we heard previously. Hammond Bay Phase 2 of the heat exchange upgrade project. Park Avenue HVAC planning, that's a year 1 project we're hoping to get into the ministry, and further dust extractor upgrades. We're also working on our vast CTC concept on Harewood site. So that work's underway as well, and we expect to have something to the board in the next few months with the committee with the thing.
Before you move on, Trustee Burdick
Yes.
has a question.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't, and I'm sure I knew this, it's just slipped my mind. Extension, as in extension school, we're looking at for the demolition?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Was that a earthquake concern, or like, I mean, I know that we may not need it at the moment, but I also know there's a lot of development going on in the Chase River kind of that area. And I'm just concerned when that opens that we're not going to have enough space.
The extension building is significantly deteriorating.
Okay. Yeah, so but we still own the property, so we could then have that for an option if we wanted to build there or rebuild?
We would still have the property at that time.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the big factors coming out for the planning, and it's a little bit of an unknown at this time, is the ministry announced that on July 1 the new SRG 3 guidelines, so seismic retrofit guidelines, were coming into effect. They encompass the new building code requirements. Most of Vancouver Island, or Vancouver Island is the most affected area in the province, were advised. We've been trying to work with the ministry to reassess all of our buildings. And so we have 2 requests in front of them. One is, like, what are we doing with seismic on a general basis with respect to this? And the other one is a specific request to reassess Ladysmith Intermediate as part of the business case. Now, we could have asked to reassess a number of buildings that we have capital thoughts about. I thought we would start with one specific and see what kind of response we get. They haven't responded yet. They've indicated that they are working on how they're going to proceed with reassessment of schools based on the new guidelines. So we're expecting when they come in that there'll be some upward pressures on the ratings. And also, just a reminder, the seismic is a significant driver for capital because that's high on the ministry's list. So there are projects that we can upgrade and or mitigate by avoidance, et cetera. That could mean the acceleration of some capital projects. And that's just a quick overview. If there's any questions, if not, I'll move on to the next section.
Any questions?
So I'll get us started, and Mike will jump in with some of the details. We're very pleased to say that last Friday at November 10th at 2 p.m. we held our first game on the turf field.
And it was a victory for...
And it was a victory. Yes, forever immortalized by the NLPS drone. On the same day, we approved it for school use, although the school, I don't believe they used it that day. It was quite late in coming when I joked with Jeff Steele that he'd get 20 minutes notice. He literally got 20 minutes notice. And with Remembrance Day ceremonies, I don't think he could get on the field. However, we did work through significant safety issues to try and prepare it for the game, and the contractor did work with us to accelerate the opening to make that playoff game, so we were pleased to be able to hold that. If you've been by it, you'll know that we're still under construction and that the zone, construction zone has been reconfigured to allow access, and it will be continued to be reconfigured as progress proceeds. And so there's a significant amount of work around the field that's yet to be done, and Mike will touch on that. And we've started discussions with the city with respect to the grand opening. That's means that we can see the end. Nothing to update on that. And of course, just a reminder that all the licenses allows the city to access, operate, and maintain the field. Mike, I'll let you.
So here's a bit of a schedule update. We were substantially complete as of November 2nd on the turf work. And the civil contractor is going to be on site for about another 3 weeks, finishing off the perimeter. And currently we are on budget. The project's gone very, very well.
Trustee Ray has a question, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Is all sports licensed to use that field? I know there was some talk that rugby wasn't going to be able to be used on that field because a license had to be used. Is that, I just heard that from a parent. I don't know if that's...
So, I'm not sure that terminology. I know the field is lined to accommodate soccer, rugby, field lacrosse, and NFL football.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and it's got the capability of being lined for CFL football.
Okay, great, thanks.
So it's confusing when you go out there, but the blue ones are lacrosse and the red are rugby.
I guess as long as the officials know and the players, that's what's important, right?
It's like a gymnasium, that's what it tells.
Thank you.
So here's a list of some of the outstanding work that's the contractor will be working on for the next 3 or so weeks. The electrics, lighting, they're assembling soccer nets and goalposts, players' benches and the enclosures and the score clock, timekeepers and officials kiosk. We're going to put a sidewalk along the fire lane from the NAC to the NDSS entrance. The crosswalk speed humps have already gone in, and that's sort of delineates the extent of the sidewalk. That'll get all the academy kids from off the fire lane, hopefully. And some additional site grading. We're putting some sod around the field, and they'll hydro seed the remainder sections that'll take through the winter and into the spring. So that construction fence is going to remain for a while.
Oh yeah, I can talk to you. So I was thinking about significant items of interest. Well, you know, we're into the joint user agreement now in a big way. We started the operations committee. There's 2 district reps. Jeff Steele, the principal of the school, and I are the reps at this time. And so we've had a couple of meetings, one targeted at review of the agreement and to kick off, and we've had another one with respect to maintenance. Items included are security cameras, maintenance, access. Allocations is probably most of the discussion. Because that's what it's there for, to be used, and signage, as-built information, equipment, etc. It all gets discussed, and I'm pleased to say that I believe we have the appropriate people on the committee to make sure that we can make the most effective use of the field. And then just a reminder on how it's used, 7 to 6 school days by the NLPS, and 3:30 to 6 is our time as well, and we've got close coordination with the city. If we're not using it, we'll see if we can get community groups on. And of course, evenings and weekends on school days, it's the same.
Trustee Higginson had a question.
It's not so much a question as a thank you to you and our staff and the contractors who have worked really hard to get this done while school's been in, and all the juggling. Like, this has kind of been a monumental task. This giant hole was built and then dug in the middle of the city. I heard through various means, which may or may not be true, that we actually hit coal at one point or something, which may not be, it may just be an urban myth. But this is a really wonderful project. And a lot of people worked really hard to make it happen, and people are talking about it across the province as a wonderful joint use example. So, you know, I just want to say hats off to everybody who's worked really hard to allow the students to keep working or keep, you know, using the school facilities, and also this is going to be such a great asset for our city. So thanks for everyone and all the work they've done for it.
Thank you. I think I take the opportunity to simply comment that our work with the city and the Nanaimo staff has been excellent and in keeping with the original intent of the partnership, and we're building deeper relationships with the city, and that's going very well.
Excellent.
Trustee Ray?
Thank you. Yeah, it's an excellent example of collaboration, so hats off to everybody involved. Is there any thought, I have 2 questions, is there any thought of signage actually on the field as a revenue generator? And the second question I'll ask you now is, Jeff Steele told me that there was going to be a big picture of him in the center of the field, and I was wondering when that comes in.
So there has been some provisional discussions at the first operations committee meeting around advertisement, around endorsements, etc. There were provisional exploration discussions between the two groups, and there's been no significant headway at this point. But it is a topic that has come up, and I expect it will continue, as I know that there is an AP related to that, and there are schools with some revenue generating advertising in their communities.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
You have 2 questions.
Yeah, I guess so.
Trustee Solomon?
Yeah, the field looks great. It's a tremendous project. I may have missed it, but is there going to be seating for spectators?
So one of the items that we're working on as we work through the budget and work towards all the requirements, sort of the core requirements, is some kind of spectator seating. And so we have a couple of options in front of us that we're currently reviewing with the city, and we're also keeping a close eye on the budget. And so we're soon to reach a decision point with respect to that item, but we're hoping that some seating can be provided within the existing budget.
Okay. I just have one more question. And you talked about putting sod, I guess it's around the peripheral. Is that right?
Just around the perimeter sidewalk, just so we, a place where we can put up the temporary fencing, the construction fencing, and the rest of the unfinished graded areas will get to hydro seed.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the advantages of this is I think we're going to be able to avoid the rabbits, kind of, but I don't want to track them back again. Do you see that as a potential issue? I don't know.
Maybe I can take a stab at that. There's a couple of things. One is there's not much edible on the field for them. And the fence that's put around the perimeter is gated and it's quite close to the ground. It's not rabbit proof, the fence isn't embedded in the concrete on the perimeter, but it hugs the concrete, so I think it's a bit of a barrier. And between the two, we're hoping that we don't see much activity.
Thanks.
So just before you move on, I haven't had an opportunity to go to the field. I'm wondering if you can point out, sort of on the diagram there, what we're looking at. So there's an inner sort of white field area with some striping, and I'm assuming that would be the all-weather field inside. And I'm wondering if outside of that, to the outer white, is that also?
That's all turf.
Okay, and then I see some yellow lines that extend. Are those part of a playing field?
So this yellow line here, and this box here is soccer.
Yeah.
You can watch mine. And the white thick is the NFL.
Okay.
And so that's the high school football. And the NFL end zone is this double wide 10-yard area in here.
Gotcha.
And and there's another place for a post, an upright that's moved back here, and then the CFL end zone is further back, very close to the fence. Now, what you can't see or wasn't present at this time is the blue. The blue field lacrosse is very difficult to see. Like somehow it just sort of blends in with the green. And then there's red rugby as well around the field.
And then I'm assuming the little bump outs to the lower part are for the players? Is that
Sorry, those are for the nets.
Oh, okay.
And the players' benches are on the opposite side, over on the Rotary Bowl side.
Okay.
They haven't been fenced in yet. The enclosures haven't arrived.
So there's two covered players' benches, and in between is the scorekeeper officials area.
All right.
And the players' benches do have a roof over them to keep the rain off. And there is a pathway that goes from the back of the players' bench official area to the back of the Rotary Bowl, and this is or this grandstand, and in that grandstand are the washrooms and the change rooms. And so the city's making those available during the day, every school day, which is our main concern, but every other day as well. And we're working with them to determine, how that's going to happen. And the handover to the city continues to happen with locks being changed and schedules being set and signage being discussed. and sort of incorporating this grandstand more into this venue. So I understand from the city that it hasn't been part of the track and field discussion, so it's more directed to the front side of the turf field rather than the back of it. And then at the end, at each end, there's a place for the nets, the soccer nets to go in. So there's 6 soccer nets, 4 on each side and 2 on each end. And there's a number of entrances. There's an emergency entrance up here for ambulances, field maintenance, etc. And there's a double gate going in here, and there's a sidewalk if you drive by that goes down here for the NDSS access. And there's another double gate access down on this end. And some of that was designed to get students on and off the turf field in the event of an emergency. So it's anticipated to be used as the school as an emergency gathering place as well.
I have you on the list, Trustee Burzbich.
Thank you.
But I had one more question, and that is the perimeter fence in relation to what we're looking at here.
So the perimeter fence is on the inside of the perimeter sidewalk. So around the entire venue is a concrete sidewalk, so you can walk the perimeter. And the fence is right at the turf, the end of the turf, and delineates the concrete from the turf.
And how tall will it be?
It's 4 feet.
Okay.
4 feet on the sides and higher on the ends.
Okay, great, thanks. Trustee Burzbich?
Thank you. And I realize, through the chair, I realize it's not finished yet. But that what you said about using it for the school as an emergency area tweaked for me. If, say, someone like me wears emergency and that was where I'm supposed to go, is there a way for me to get there? Is there going to be a way on there with a wheelchair? Because I don't see it right now. But I'm not good at reading maps.
No, there's a number of improvements with respect to hard surface access ramps. And so there is, as I said, there is one down this end of the field. So from the back of NDSS, at the level part of the back of NDSS, it's essentially handicap accessible up to the field surface via a ramp with no stairs.
Okay, I haven't been there in months.
There's a sidewalk from Sir Roxman Stadium, essentially right at that point, all the way down to the school. So that's also should be accessible.
Okay.
Then you can also get onto this access road and again onto the perimeter walkway. Once you're on the perimeter walkway, it's ramped up to the washroom as well. Now, I'm not saying the handicap washroom or the washroom for handicap accessible. We're working with the city on that.
Yeah. No, just the broad concept of what it's going to be like in that area. Okay, great.
Any other questions?
Beautiful.
Another alternate shot of the field there.
Yeah.
Still can't make out the blue lines.
Sort of.
See the red ones though.
Yeah,
Red ones are nice and clear.
that's the rugby. So after NDSS, we'll go right into Frank May. Just a quick update on Frank May. It's 2-story 10 classroom addition. The alterations to Williamson Road were complete over the summer, and ready for September. We began construction in July of 2017 and will be done July 2018. Just an overview of the delivery model. We are using a construction manager. And in doing so, that we have better control of project time, schedule, cost, quantity. Unitech RRCM on site. Their role is to work with the consultant team to align the design and budget, make recommendations to manage and oversee the construction budget. To date, we've awarded 23 contracts for sub-trades. We've still got one outstanding, I believe, for siding. They also assume the role of prime contractor on site, so they're responsible for all site supervision, site activities, security, safety, and they coordinate all the sub-trades on site through scheduling. Lowham and Grow Architects are the prime consultant. They're on the project, head architect, and he's got a team of sub-consultants that report to him and work with him. And their role is to work with the CM for the same reasons, to align the budget and design. So the process worked quite well. Here's a view of the site plan. So the Williamson Road entry work is to the right, and you can see the addition on the left of the building, on the left-hand side with the new play court of that. So this was about a month ago. This is the new entry exit off Williamson Street. There are gates now in place on either side, and the lights are going in at the end of this week, so we'll be pretty much wrapped up with the front end work. It turned out really well. And the status of the construction project as of last week. So we've completed the foundation work. They're prepping for the slab. Fortunately, the weather has held us up a bit with all the rain, so we're looking at probably the end of this week to get that in, if the weather cooperates. And this is what it looked like a week ago. Those are the grade beams. The piles vary in depth. Underneath those grade beams at the far corner, we're down about 4 meters. So just to give you an idea of how far down the bearing we are. And on the left-hand side of the foundation, we're basically at grade, we're at bedrock, so those are just strip footings. So some key milestones here, I won't go through them all, but we're looking at in February. That's a pretty substantial stage of construction, and we're on track for a July 17th occupancy, which will give us plenty of time to outfit with furniture and commission systems and get it set for school in September. Any questions on
yeah, I had one. And it has to do with planning ahead, like for HVAC systems. Is this something that's purchased well in advance so that there's no delays associated with it, or?
Yes. Yeah. There's once the contracts are awarded to the mechanical contractor, they have a list of items that they will go ahead and put purchase orders in through their vendors. They'll advise us if there's any long lead items that could delay or impact the schedule, and so far we've had none.
Okay, great. Great.
I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask. I know at the specific meeting, the consolidation group, there's been questions about a lighted crosswalk in Hammond Bay. Has that come into any sort of discussions? I just know it takes the city a long time to do that.
Yeah, if you may have more information on that, but I do know that there's a safe walk program.
Yeah, it's part of that.
So I did receive a correspondence, I think, from the school, from the PAC via the school with respect to a lighted crosswalk for Williamson and Hammond Bay, and I did forward that to our city contact at engineering who we've been working with respect to getting organized with respect to safe walk on behalf of the school consolidation working group. And so they are aware of the issue, and they're taking it under advisement at this point. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to advise the next update for the business committee. We'll have more information arising out of the school consolidation working group in November and other developments.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Thanks. It seems like it's coming along really well. Can I just ask you about an elevator? Is this standard practice now with a 2-story development? Do we have an elevator? Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, the lifts they're not really conducive to seismic. There's more convenience.
Okay. Thank you.
So just they're basically 2 or 3 levels of types of lift devices. One would be a chairlift that goes in the stairwell, and we've had those in the past, and we moved away from them. We moved towards a lift device, which is sort of a standard below a commercial elevator, and we've moved away from those as well now, and we moved towards like a cost-effective commercial grade elevator for the reliability purposes.
So just a couple of projects we did this summer. We finished the NDSS dust extractor upgrade, substantially complete last month. We do have a few minor deficiencies that we're working through, some bugs to get out of the system, and that's a picture of it there. And it's going to have a fence around it just to keep the kids out of it and stuff.
So just out of interest sake, one of the issues we're dealing with now is these things are designed to move a lot of air and extract the dust. And there's limitations on how you can close off some of the orifices. And so there's a little bit more noise than what we expected. We need staff and service staff when the device is running. It's not the actual noise from the unit It's actual air noise moving in the classroom, so.
Like a whistling sound, is that?
Like, yeah, like disruptive in the eyes of the instructor, so we're working through that.
And Hammond Bay, we've just, we're substantial completion of the heat exchange project will be the end of this month. Phase 2 is planned for next summer, so that's the top set ask in the 18-19 capital plan.
And this is a heat exchange from the septic
From
out?
the effluent line, yeah, from the RDN. So all the heat exchange work has been done. The phase 2 work is actually the unit ventilators upgrade that go into the classrooms.
So we do get the odd concern from the school that gets passed by our office with respect to the effluent smell. When we have got those complaints, there's been no effluent actually in the system because the system's not up in commission. So there is a concern at times from the school with respect to the plant itself, which is some distance away. The effluent in the system, it's a sealed system. It's just like the pipe that runs by the school. So, you know, with respect to the effluent smell coming from the plant, that will remain unchanged. But the system itself, there will be effluent on the site in sealed pipes running through the system.
And it's the same liquid that's getting pumped out into Georgia Street, 2 kilometers out. Got a bit of an additional SCC update for you.
Okay, so we have now received all percentage of the 3.9 million. At first, the ministry gave us 75%. We applied for and received the 25% to complete the program. There's about $550,000 of work remaining. Continues to be a priority to us, and after that, we're going to get on to AFG and other project work.
Here's a breakdown of some of the portables that Tim Dave was talking about. There's a couple of them in construction there. The one on the left, the lower left, that's the Ladysmith primary unit, and the one on the lower right, that's the washroom portable out at North Oyster Elementary. So those are currently in progress of being installed and hooked up. Remaining projects that we've got for SCC that we're still working on, we've got some work in John Barsby, the VAST program added a classroom, so we've done some juggling over in that school. We're working on 4 new Gridco portable installations. Ladysmith and Pleasant Valley are in progress. Mountain View is coming this weekend, and Park Avenue is coming the end of the month. We're in the process of planning the Cedar Elementary multi-purpose and boys-girls change room project. Design is at 90% complete. We're actually working on the budget at the same time. Hope to get that in front of our group for a scope sign-off probably end of next week. The McGurk portables, there's 2 portables sitting there that are not in use now but need renovation in preparation for the closure of Rutherford. We have funding through STC to do that. And as Tim also mentioned, that we're looking at putting in sinks in the relocated and new portables. So there's 11 in total, 6 different school sites. So I've got a series of slides of sort of what happened in September, and it's designed to sort of add to Superintendent Davies' comments. Not to confuse, so if you have any questions, let me know. In September, we added 10 divisions on or about September 8th. 3 were placed in rooms previously prepared or previously funded, but we hadn't actually designated divisions for them yet. 2 were placed in surplus rooms. They were a surprise to us. And then there were 5 more that were a surprise. So 5 schools were organized to hold classes in what turned out to be some core special education rooms. And that's where we're temporarily housing for those 5 rooms. We added the 1 classroom at VAST, as Mike had indicated. What happened after that? Well, we requested additional SCC funding. So we've got a second ask in now. It's about $1.3 million. And it was for the preparation of the 2 rooms that weren't previously funded and the 5 portables that for the classrooms that are housed temporarily. And we started planning for the 5 portable locations. So what happened in October? Well, we heard back from the ministry on the funding request. And they indicated that funding was not immediately available.
But they were working with districts on their first asks and any additional asks to consolidate those together, and they were expecting there to be an opportunity to put that forward sometime in December. So they were saying, yeah, we understand what you need and we'll review it with you, and then at some point we're going to see if we can get you funding.
Trustee Higgins.
So does that mean that we're currently funding these out of our own?
No, we put the additional 5 portables on hold, and we're not funding them. We're hoping that the ministry can get back to us in December or January, and we hope that they'll be approved, but they need to get in front of Treasury in order for that to happen, is what we've been told.
And that's,
so no.
So the students are currently being housed in those surplus spaces that you were talking about?
In the special ed,
Yeah.
it turns out, yeah. And so Tim Davey and I visited all the schools to determine the sustainability of the temporary accommodations. And from that, we looked at reconsidering the order of placement of the undelivered portables. And arising out of that, 5 classes will continue in temporary accommodations until a response regarding funding, as the Secretary Treasurer has indicated. And we reallocated 1 portable from Pauline Harrison, Eastman Primary. And we added a temporary accommodation adjustment at Baby, so we're going to convert the computer lab into an alternate use for the rest of the school year.
So, to hear you talk about sustainability of temporary accommodation sounds a bit of an oxymoron to me. And of course, we're reacting to the Supreme Court decision, and so districts across the province are scrambling to get portables and scrambling to make room and trying to find places for these students. And ultimately, the students benefit because the student-teacher ratios are better. So there will be more one-on-one attention. And that's good for our learners. But my concern is, and I guess we won't know until we flesh this out a little bit, but we do have an inventory of schools that are not being utilized. And at some point, it would be good to have some sort of capacity utilization information across the district and have a relook at some of these schools that aren't being utilized and whether we should reopen them or not to accommodate these. Because, we're buying portables and that's not an ideal situation to have students in. Trustee Higginson?
I just want to circle back around to, you mentioned a vast classroom, and also it wasn't right in there, but just a question that popped in my head too. So is that vast classroom finished or you're still working on it?
It's in progress.
It's in progress, it's not opened yet?
Yeah, in progress. They are, my understanding is they are
Okay.
using it.
Okay.
But there are some adjustments they'd
Mill
like
work.
to make to the room that they've recently signed off. So they want to put some storage rooms, some additional electrical, and a door to an adjacent classroom.
Yep.
And that work is underway.
Okay, and then my other question was, is the Tillicum-Lalem daycare open? It's Tillicum-Lalem that's going to be running the daycare, is it?
Aboriginal Friendship Center in the portable.
The portable, yeah.
Yes, they are licensed, and they have a license with us, and they are licensed, and I understand they've started operating.
They've started operating. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Someone please.
Through the chair, I just want to again thank Director Sabo and Manager Ross for their work and for the presentation, but also the work that's happened over the summer. As has been mentioned, there was a considerable amount of work that took place just to get us prepared for opening in September and continues through to present day, just to have our students in classes, have our teachers teaching in appropriate accommodations for learning to take place. So thank you to you, and thank you to your teams and the staff that work with you as well, the maintenance staff. So appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
There's no correspondence. There's no unfinished business. And under new business, we've moved item 11.1 till next month. And so 11.2 is an asset management plan discussion. And And I brought this forward to the agenda setting committee to have a discussion at the board table. And sort of as a background to this, when we talk about an asset management plan, typically we're talking about schools that have been surplused and what we're going to do with those properties and what we're going to do with those schools. But the district has a number of other assets that are high dollar assets. And so one of the functions of a school board is to provide oversight. And since these assets are purchased with tax dollars, I think it may be beneficial for trustees to learn what the asset management plans are for some of these assets. And the assets that I'm talking about are portables, would be one, school buses, the fleet of automobiles that we have, and perhaps computer equipment. These are typically high dollar assets that we need to track, and we need to know how many we have, and if we're applying for new buses in any given school year or not. So the thought is, I guess, my idea was to for trustees, perhaps staff could present a report to trustees about what asset management plans are in place for these assets, to give trustees a notion of how many buses we have, how many portables we have, how old they are, how many new ones we're asking for next year, that kind of thing. And then possibly present to trustees on an annual basis a high-level report, just summarizing, perhaps in a spreadsheet sort of format, what these assets are, where they're deployed, what schools have what portables, again, how many school buses we have, how many are in operation, how many are surplus, how many we're asking for as replacements for the following year. So I just bring it up as a discussion item for trustees to see if they feel similar in such thoughts. Yeah, Trustee Burzavich.
I agree with you, and I think one that you mentioned that's important as well is technology, particularly around, I know that there's a couple of schools where their computer labs have been converted into classrooms, and I'm just curious what's happened to those computers and how those schools are doing in terms of having enough technology time for their students, and how that's impacting, basically how it's impacting the ability for teachers to get their kids exposure to technology.
Sure. Anyone else? Trustee Higginson?
I'm kind of process everything that you just said, because I'm hearing it, I'm not seeing it. It's hard for me, like I'm a reader. So I may have misunderstood some of the things you said, and this is the first time I'm hearing it as opposed to reading it. You know, I feel like we hear some of this information regularly already. You know, we had a great presentation on our technology. It may have been under the TAG report that talks about personally, I'm not, I don't think I need to know exactly how many computers we have in the whole school district and where they are and what kind they are and what our plan is. What I want to know is, you know, and I think I hear that from the TAG presentation that we had, which was, you know, we have this plan to replace this much, to upgrade these things, and here's the plan to do it, and here's where we are on this plan. And so I feel like I already get that information, and I don't think I need to go down any deeper at this level. You know, if we're going to have this discussion, I think it needs to intersect with a policy-based discussion, and I don't know what the policy is that it would intersect with at this point. And I do think we have some work to do in the business committee that does have to do with oversight. Like you talked about, we still have to have discussions around the Auditor General's report, what we're doing in terms of our policies for oversight on that. We've been putting into practice a surplus policy for our budget, and I think that us using some time to actually put that practice into policy might be a good use of our time, because that's actually something that we intersect with in terms of the budget and how we use it, and it would provide a lot more clarity for people, especially the public, on the budget oversight. So I'm not sure that I need to know exactly how many of, you know, each bus or each computer we have, but what I want to know is that we have good processes in place for replacement and upgrading of these things. And also, I think if we are looking for places that we need to we have opportunities for improvement on our financial oversight, I would say that we should be working on our, on putting into place that surplus policy we've talked about, and as well, having a good discussion at the business committee about the Auditor General's reports and the Ministry of Finance report that was done last year, to look at what we're doing and we're not doing. I know a lot of those things, having read the report, we're already doing and we've put in place since then, but I think that that's, I think, a better place, because then if we have good oversight in those areas, then all those other little things that you're talking about, the minutia stuff, then that stuff will be done.
Trustee Berzer?
Thank you. And I actually think Trustee Higginson summarized it much better than I did. I think that the high level part is important. It's not about knowing that we have 27 buses or, you know, or that we have 23 computers here or there. It is about the bigger picture of are we meeting the needs of our students, in what way, and, you know, and I'll use transportation as an example, that on a broad level, do we have enough buses and such available to support what schools want to do in terms of field trips and how, you know, but again, in the big picture sort of high level way, and do we support that? Is it important to us philosophically that buses be available to take students, special needs students, to the swim programs, or, you know, so again, not getting into the specifics, but the broad idea of this is why we have buses, and you know, that kind of stuff. Sure. The big picture.
Trustee Song?
Yeah, I'd have to say that I'm not really feeling really strong about the need for specific reports. I think that the fleet of buses is managed, you know, by our administration, and I know that they know very well which buses require to be phased out, or the terms of the mileage, but it isn't information that I think that I need to have. Because I feel that it's being managed appropriately. The same with the portables. I mean, if we have portables, I don't need to know the age of the portable necessarily. I need to know that they're managed well, and if they leak, they're going to be fixed. But that's with all our buildings. So I don't think we need to really go down into the specifics of these assets. And they are assets for the school, but I feel that we do get some of that information, you know, through our reports in general. But specifically, I don't feel we need specific reports about it.
Trustee Robinson?
I too believe that our management are doing an excellent job dealing with all of those things, and we do get reports regularly that make me feel comfortable that they're on top of those assets. The asset management. I'm very happy with the way things are.
Okay, great. Trustee Higginson?
And based on the conversation that we're having, I think it's jogged in my memory that I do think we actually at the business committee need to start working on on putting together a surplus policy or contingency policy so that it's in place for the next budget process. And I'd like to request that we start, you know, maybe that be a discussion for the next agenda, the next meeting. I know that the Secretary Treasurer McVeigh was just at the BC ASBO's conference and mentioned that there was a presentation on this, and it would be nice to hear from her. There's a sample policy out there, just maybe some process, like a discussion initially of here's a sample policy, let's start this discussion. I think that's one of the best things that we can do and use our time here in terms of our oversight process.
Sure. Great, thanks. So the next item on the agenda is a discussion about the academies. And this came up and was brought forward again to the agenda setting committee. But a parent recently wrote a letter to the school district, and I don't remember the details of the letter, but it was some question about how much the academy cost, and the fact that the academy, the money for that academy was required several months before the academy began. And there was a reply, and it was a very nice letter from Robin Gray, and it made a lot of sense. And in the letter from Robin Gray, it said that the finances for the academies, this is information that's available, and I wondered, well, where is it available? And And I went to the SD68 website, and there is a section about the academies, and there is a contact for each academy and a brief description about the functions for each academy. But there was no discussion about how much the academy costs, what the academy spent the money on, when the monies were required to be paid, how many students of need were being met within the academy. And I know some of these are discussions that we've had in the past. And it just sort of led me to the notion that perhaps we should make this information publicly available on the website, along with the information associated with the academies. And in fact, the academies could be fleshed out a little bit more and include some information about what the academy does, what the benefits are, and maybe some information from the academies themselves. So again, this is another point that I thought we could bring up for discussion. Trustee Solomon?
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. I think that it's just a useful procedure if we can put out the information that people can access. And basically, what we're talking about is a general description of the program, what programs are available, their location, their numbers, the tuition costs, whether or not there's a gender in terms of it's all guys or there's 50%, very basic stuff that people can access. And I think that I think it'd just be really, really helpful if people are really interested in a program. Then it would save a lot of work if we can put it on the site in a way that people can click on it or be referred to, that this is a good starting point. They can look into it. That's all. Yeah. I don't think we need a motion, by the way. I'm just saying that I think that would be a good process.
Yeah, Trustee Burzard?
I agree, and I completely agree with what you said. I think the concern that's biggest for me is someone who is concerned with equity, and I know we all are, families who are living in poverty and so on and so forth, that people know how to, that we advertise a way to, first of all, that we know what is available in terms, that people know what's available to them in terms of financial aid for the cost of academies, and that's clearly advertised, because I think we've said philosophically we don't want any kid to lose out on an academy because they can't afford it. So then that needs to be clear how that's dealt with, and then we don't deal with how that, that's a management piece, but the information needs to be clearly out there for people how to get that support if they need it.
Sure. Would you have a comment?
Unless Trustee Higginson wanted to go first, and then I can.
No, I'm in no hurry.
I was just going to say that the information on fees is available, so if it's a matter of just simply putting that information on the website, we can certainly do that. In terms of the governance piece, some school districts have APs or policies related to academies, so that's something else that we as staff can just look into and report back on.
Okay, great.
Trustee.
The Secretary Treasurer touched on it, which is that, we've had this discussion a lot about academies in various forms, and maybe it's time for us to start thinking about having a policy that guides our academies so that we can all feel confident that the issues that you brought up, I think that there's the philosophical notion that it is happening, and I think everybody shares it, but it would help, I think, everybody feel more confident that there's overarching guiding principles for this. So if perhaps that's something that we need to address in Education Committee is after we do our international travel policy, just saying, that we will maybe address that by the end of the year, is try to put together some principles that will create a policy on guiding the work of the academies.
Any other comments? Any questions from question period?
A motion to adjourn, is that what you're doing?
Sure, motion by Trustee Burzard. Any objection? Seeing none, you're adjourned.